Some people are the kind of light you don't notice until it's gone. The kind of person who holds a family together without ever saying that's what they're doing. For the Carlton family, that person was Cristi Lynne. There's a heaviness to this case that you can feel even before you understand it. A quiet tension that settles in the moment you start reading the details. Like walking into a room where someone was arguing just minutes before. The air still feels charged, even if no one is speaking. Cristi's story lives in that kind of air. Born on November 30th, 1960, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Cristi grew up to become the spark plug of her family. The one who made things work, the one who kept people close, the one everyone depended on. Her sister called her the core. Her father said she was the one who made the whole room brighter. At 17, she married the boy she loved, Blair Christopher Hall, and together they raised 3 daughters in Calimesa, California. Cristi worked as a radiologic technologist, known for her work ethic, her warmth, and her devotion to her family. She lived a life built on care, and on June 7, 2007, that life ended in the most violent, intimate way imaginable. It was a Thursday morning, quiet, ordinary. Cristi and her husband, Chris Hall, were in the backyard hot tub of their home, a private moment, a place where no one should have had to fear anything. But behind the wall that separated their yard from the neighbors, someone heard something that didn't sound like an accident. There's a moment in every case like this, a moment where the facts stop being enough, where the paperwork and the statements and the timeline all sit there, neat and orderly, but the filling of the story refuses to settle. Cristi's case has that moment. Lindsay K. Patterson was visiting her mother that morning. Their properties were divided by a 5-foot block wall, the kind with decorative holes that let in sunlight and sometimes sound. Lindsay heard a scream, not a startled yelp, not a slip, a piercing scream, sharp enough to freeze her in her place. She moved toward the wall, looked through one of the openings, and what she saw would follow her for the rest of her life. Lindsay testified that she saw Chris Hall holding a woman's head underwater, Cristi's head. She watched him force her down, watched the struggle, watched the water churn, and then silence. She looked again. Chris was alone in the murky water. Cristi was no longer visible. Lindsay saw him get out, dry off, and go inside the house. She saw the expression on his face, anger, not panic, and she called 911. Chris Hall told a very different story. She said that Cristi slipped, that she struck her head on the patio slab, that she drowned while he was inside using the bathroom and waking their teenage daughter. He said he returned to find her unconscious in the water, that he tried CPR, that he did everything he could. But the atmosphere around Cristi's death refused to settle. Accidents settle. This one didn't. The initial autopsy ruled Cristi's death a drowning, but prosecutors noticed something that didn't fit. Cristi had hemorrhages on her face and chest, injuries consistent with forced drowning. She had rib fractures, chest abrasions, lacerations on the top and back of her head. Chris Hall had 2 fresh scratches, and his DNA was found under Cristi's fingernails. These were not the injuries of a slip. These were injuries of a struggle. And when you sit with the details, really sit with them, something shifts. The story doesn't behave the way accidental tragedies usually do. Instead, it lingers. It hangs in the air like humidity, heavy and uncomfortable. Chris Hall had once been a police officer. He left the San Bernardino Police Department in 1994 after claiming he was accidentally shot during an undercover operation. He later worked for 2 police departments in Idaho, and in 2000, he was convicted of embezzling $19,000 from one of them. By the time Cristi died, the marriage had cracks. Cristi had previously had an affair, and had recently been in contact with that person again, and she had an $800,000 life insurance policy. Pressure, history, opportunity. But the most damning evidence wasn't on paper. It is what neighbors saw through a hole in a wall. This is the question that sits at the center of the case. The one people whisper but rarely say out loud. What makes a man do something like this? It's not one moment. It's a slow erosion. Years of resentment, fear, control, or quiet anger that builds grain by grain until the small spark becomes enough to ignite everything. Sometimes it's panic. Sometimes it's entitlement. Sometimes it's the belief you won't face consequences. And sometimes it's a kind of emotional volatility that doesn't explode. It seeps. You don't have to accuse anyone to acknowledge the psychological landscape. You just have to look at the patterns. And in Cristi's case, the patterns whisper more than the official story ever did. But then there are the daughters, and their disbelief is its own kind of tragedy. They don't believe their mother was murdered, not because the evidence is clear, not because the story makes sense, but because the alternative is too painful to hold. Accepting the possibility of murder means accepting that the world you trusted wasn't real. It means rewriting your childhood, your memories, your loyalties. It means choosing between the parent you lost and the parent who's still alive. Denial becomes a kind of shelter, a place to hide from the truth because the truth is too sharp to hold. And in families fractured by trauma, the loudest narrative often becomes the safest one. Chris Hall's first trial ended in a hung jury, but the second trial, in 2011, ended with a conviction for first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 25 years to life, and then came the moment that broke the courtroom. From the back row, one of Cristi's daughters cried out, "This is wrong. This is not justice." And a family shattered in every direction. One woman dead, one man imprisoned, 3 daughters caught between grief and loyalty. Cristi Lynne Hall was more than the way she died. She was a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. She was a spark plug, the core, the one who held everyone else together. Her death didn't just take her life, it fractured the people who loved her most. And in the quiet that followed, the truth became something everyone could see, but not everyone could accept. Some cases end with a verdict, others end with a wound. Cristi's story is both.